Am I the a-hole for kicking my stepdaughter out of my house after she sabotaged her father's party? My stepdaughter is 19 and absolutely hates me. I have been with her dad for 8 years and met him a year after he divorced her mother, but her and her mom both blame me for the divorce. They divorced because she cheated with his brother. I have made multiple efforts to bond with her, and she has nothing but bad things to say whenever I do. Like in your dreams, go F yourself. You'll never be my mom, so stop trying, etc. Despite this, I still try, and it's absolutely exhausting. Her father has spoken to her multiple times, but she truly doesn't care. On Wednesday, I was throwing my husband a surprise birthday party. I invited my sister-in-law, mother-in-law, and stepdaughter. My sister-in-law is hands down my best friend, while my mother-in-law and I are civil, usually. My sister-in-law called it and said something bad was going to happen, that she had a feeling, but I ignored it. I baked the cake and got him like 4 gifts, one of which was an expensive watch he had his eye on for months. My sister-in-law even came with me to buy it. Long story short, when I was out on the back deck grilling and my stepdaughter was the only one inside, and the cake ended up being accidentally knocked off the counter and the watch was gone. I asked her where it was, and she said the only watch she knew about was the one her mom bought for him, but she wouldn't let me see it. Husband walks in halfway through the argument and she hands him the watch I bought and said, "Mom knew you liked watches, so she got this for you." My sister-in-law was the first to speak up, saying that I had bought that watch and had my back 110%. My stepdaughter then goes in complete hysterics, saying that once again I was trying to bash her mother and take credit, when all her mom wanted was to do something nice for the love of her life. I immediately told her to get out, and then showed my husband the receipts. She refuses to leave and says she won't be told she can't be in her dad's home. I've owned this house for 21 years. My husband has my back, and tells her to get out and not come back, and says he is done with her lying and trying to play matchmaker. My mother-in-law, who saw the whole thing, then starts berating me and blaming me for alienating her grandchild, and says I'm the reason they don't have a relationship. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. When all her mom wanted was to do something nice for the love of her life. What on earth are your stepdaughter and her mom on? Your stepdaughter is more than old enough to learn some manners and treat you in a civil way. She doesn't have to like you, but should show basic respect. I'm assuming she can go to her mom's house after being kicked out, rightfully so. So it's not like she's out on the street. If your mother-in-law really cared about her relationship with your stepdaughter, she would make her own effort and call her out for her attitude towards you. Thank God for your sister-in-law and husband supporting you. Stepdaughter wouldn't be allowed in my house anymore. She can live with her mom, and her dad can bring her out to go places, but she's not allowed back at the house ever. And going forward, I would never attempt to speak to her again, and consider a restraining order on her mom. Not today, Hall. Your stepdaughter is a raging lunatic. Her mother cheated on her father, but you're to blame for the divorce? How does that work in her twisted mind? Raising a little monster that will cheat to get what she wants. For what it's worth, my mom left my dad because he was completely absent in our lives. He worked and came home, and that was it. No extracurriculars, no family trips. He would just stay home. Nothing outside of more or less existing in the house. When she filed for divorce, my dad started, being a dad. My brother ate it up, latched onto him, blamed my mom for everything, moved out of the house to be with my dad. Sometimes people make weird choices during a divorce. Has anyone ever just flat out said, ask your mom about her sleeping with your uncle? She knows about it, but says that if I didn't start dating him, her parents could have worked it out. That's insane. I get wanting your parents to be together, but it's been a decade and she's 19 now. There's something seriously imbalanced about her to think she could pass that watch off as a gift from her mom. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for how I punished my stepdaughter for flushing her sister's spices down the toilet? I, male 42, married my current wife when my daughter, 16, was 4 and my stepdaughter, 14, was 2. They grew up as if they were blood siblings with occasional disagreements and jealousy issues, mostly from my stepdaughter. 2 days ago was my daughter's dog's 3rd death anniversary. Usually, at that time, she'd rather be alone to write poems or look at pictures of her beloved dog. This year, she asked me to go with her to visit his grave, which is located in her grandparents' farm. And though my wife appreciates my daughter's need to have time alone, my stepdaughter wanted to come with us, though she wasn't close to the dog. My daughter refused to let her come and only wanted me to go. My stepdaughter then threw a fit and insisted on coming. I sat her down to explain her sister's need for space that day, and she stopped after that. We left, but 15 minutes later, my wife texted me that my stepdaughter had a breakdown and didn't stop crying, then flushed all her sister's spices that were in separate containers down the toilet. They were a gift from my daughter's Asian friend's mom, since my daughter is into Asian food and cooks meals every week. I was stunned. I called my wife, but got no response. My daughter asked what's wrong, but I just dropped her off at her grandparents' farm then went back home. My stepdaughter refused to come out of her room yelling that my daughter deserved it for excluding her like that. I was pissed. I told her I'd punish her for wasting spices that were important to her sister that she shouldn't even touched, by taking from her savings to pay for the damages. But my wife thought I should only take away privileges and not money my stepdaughter saved. She said she's still a kid, and she won't let me touch her saving but will pay herself. But if my wife paid, then my stepdaughter will think her behavior is okay. Then she said my daughter's to blame too for not letting her stepsister come with her. She acted as if she never goes to the farm, though I take them there twice a month. I argued that this was, in my opinion, the right punishment to get this resolved. But my wife said I was only making my stepdaughter resent me because she wants the money for a new bicycle. We kept disagreeing on this, and all I was thinking of was my daughter's reaction when I told her. She was devastated, but I assured her I was taking steps to help her replace all the spices she lost. My wife called me cruel. Am I the a-hole? The consequence he came up with is absolutely fair. Since when do consequences need to be adapted and tailored to the kid's preferences? You also shouldn't be afraid to insist on a consequence just because she's your stepdaughter. You've raised her most of her life. Moreover, what she did was wrong. So she wanted to save up for a new bicycle. Well, her sister wanted to save those spices for cooking a meal. She owes her sister monetary compensation. The whole point is to show her that it's not worth doing something like this again. If your stepdaughter is sad/upset about this consequence, that means it's working. Not a hole. Oh my goodness, yes. My son is 8 and is having a hard time accepting consequences for his actions. Yesterday he missed a portion of the visit with my in-laws at his stepbrothers, as his punishment was to stay in his room. The visit was in the front yard. Because of his age, he gets the opportunity to have a redo when he understands his actions. It is frustrating to enforce a lot of the time, but I am doing it now to help make him a more compassionate person later. Thank you for your hard work making a good future adult. It is not easy, but damn, it is appreciated by the rest of us. Your wife doesn't want your stepdaughter to replace something that she stole? Suddenly, her tantrums at 14 years old aren't so surprising. Not a hole. This. Opie has a wife problem. The wife offering to pay instead of the 14-year-old is ridiculous. It explains why the 14-year-old is so bratty. Opie, protect your daughter and get the entire family into therapy, or things will only get worse since your wife enables her daughter's bad behavior. Not a hole. She had a tantrum, acted entitled, and destroyed someone else's property. She knew exactly what she was doing, and did so maliciously. Now she's responsible for paying for it. Not a hole. It's pretty much the punishment fits the crime. Now stepdaughter will have to wait on getting a bike until later, and she'll hopefully learn that actions have consequences. Better to learn that now as a young teen versus later. Not a hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister nobody surprised her stepson chose not to visit anymore? My sister and her husband started out online dating. When they decided to get serious 9 years ago, he moved across the country to be with her, leaving behind his then 7-year-old son. He and his ex were already apart at that point, but from what I've learned, they had shared custody up until then. His son was not happy that his dad moved so far, and when the first summer of long-distance parenting came, he clearly didn't want to be there, and showed no excitement or interest in getting to know my sister. My sister was all surprised Pikachu face at the time, and couldn't believe he was so dismissive of her when they met. Over the last 9 years, they have gotten married and had 2 children together. Now my sister's stepson has decided he no longer cares about maintaining contact with his dad or half-siblings, and told them in April he would not be flying out this summer. Last year didn't happen due to COVID, so they were hoping he would come. But he told his dad he didn't appreciate being left for some woman, and especially didn't like the way his dad started a new family after moving so far away from him. Meaning he had to travel across the whole country every single time he saw his dad. And how he was done. That his dad could keep his new family, he was good with his mom and family back there. My sister was stunned, and she cannot believe he feels the way he does. She asked me if we could talk about it last week, and she asked me if I could believe he would do this. I said I could easily believe it. That nobody was shocked by his actions because it was clear he was hurt, and felt like his dad abandoned him for my sister. He never appeared to any of us to care much for his half-siblings, and he definitely doesn't give a crap about my sister. It was also clear he was angry with his dad, but my sister's husband expected him to adapt and adjust, and probably thought he'd get over it with time. Well, he didn't. My sister was pissed that I said nobody was surprised. She said I was dismissive and cruel with my words, that saying that 21 is as good as I told you so. She told me none of us should have expected this, and if we did, we're all huge a-holes. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I mean, truth sucks to hear, but the dude literally just up and left his kid. I'd expect him to take time and effort out of his life every year to visit them. Of course, the kid is going to grow bitter and resentful towards his father, and the people he was abandoned for in his eyes. I never understood people who would just find someone thousands of miles from where they live, and just expect the kids to adapt and accept things without having the right to express what they're feeling. In certain cases, the moves are necessary. Both my divorced parents were military, but they made an effort to ensure they were both a regular part of my life, even living across the country, and I visited all summer and on major holidays. I'm betting that Opie's brother-in-law puts very little effort into making sure he stayed a part of his son's life despite distance. Not the a-hole. Did she ever acknowledge it had to be hard on the stepson to go through what he did? Or that the dad should have flown back sometimes to see his son? It seems so one-sided, and I don't see any acknowledgement of care for stepson's feelings on the part of your sister. The truth hurts. It's incredibly disruptive to the child to have spent entire summers so far away from all his school friends. It had to suck listening all the kids tell their stories about summer camps and Little League the first day back from school. Truth hurts, yo. Not an a-hole. And given how you don't mention them ever visiting the son, meaning the burden was always on him, what else did they expect? At the very least, they could have done vacations over in his area and do fun stuff with him, if they want to make him feel like he still mattered. Yeah, it seems common on the sub that the kids are the ones putting the effort in. Usually a good indication who the a-hole is going to be. Not an a-hole. Opie was right. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for calling my father a worthless sperm donor, and then refusing to come to his son's funeral? My 17 female father, let's call him Carl, left my mom and I when I was 6. I didn't even know my parents had issues, and apparently neither did my mom, so it was a total surprise when I woke up that morning to my mom in hysterics because he was missing. We searched everywhere, contacted everyone we knew, and still it took, well, over a year before we even found him. Even then, it was just so my mom could get a proper divorce. No contact since then. My mom was the best, but she was killed in an accident when I was 10. I was in the car with her, and in a hospital for a while afterwards. The authorities went looking for my dad, but when they couldn't find him, custody of me went to my mom's foster/adoptive parents. About a month ago, my grandparents were contacted by Carl, who claimed he wanted to see me. Or rather, he wanted me to meet his son, 11, who was apparently sick. Have I mentioned that Carl got himself a new family the same year he ditched us? Kid wasn't even his, but apparently meant more to him than I ever did. Anyway, it seemed like the kid wanted to meet me. My grandparents made it clear it would be my choice, and I said no, vehemently. Then days ago, Carl showed up at my house screaming that I was an awful child/sister because I refused to grant his son's dying wish, and now the kid is already passed. I felt sympathetic towards him, but there was no way I was gonna let him blame me for it. So this may be where I'm the a-hole. I told Carl he had no right to my time because he was nothing more than a worthless sperm donor who didn't even show up when my mom died. Then I told him that under no circumstance can he force me to attend his son's funeral because I didn't know him, nor did I ever want to. My grandparents are on my side, but they did mention that I could have been just a bit nicer because his kid just died. But frankly, Carl was an A. It is not like I said he deserved what happened for being a crappy dad. So, am I the a-hole? Not an a-hole. Screw Carl, and what happened to the kid isn't your problem. I'll take downvotes, but it's the truth. Opie never knew the kid and had no relationship. Your grandparents are good people, and you were probably the world to your mother. Hold your head up high and remember the good times. Not an a-hole. No downvotes for me. Carl sucks as a father and as a human being. $5 says he was after a kidney, liver, or bone marrow to save the other son, and that's the only reason he got in touch at all. Not an a-hole. That's kinda how I assumed it was going to end up being about. And while it wasn't confirmed one way or the other, that's just because Opie didn't take the bait. Maybe the kid genuinely wants to make a connection with some rumored sister, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was just about finding out whether she's a potential medical match. Not an a-hole, though I think that he claims that his stepson wants to meet because he figures that will be a better guilt trip to inflict on you than Say does, because there's no reason why the kid should want to see you. Not an a-hole. Also, I'm guessing he never paid child support as he went AWOL. Might be worth getting his contact details so he can be made to back pay that. Not an a-hole. He had it coming. Glad you got a chance to get it off your chest.
Am I the a-hole for no longer giving support to my wife's family after I became successful with my own company after they talked down about me? My early 30s wife, mid-20s, grew up in a fairly poor environment. Her grandpa had money, but her mom didn't, and her sister doesn't. My wife has an incredibly strong work ethic. She's probably more accurately defined as a workaholic. When I first met her, I was in trucking, making about $50,000 to $70,000 per year. Since then, I developed a niche in a specialty marketing field and became very good at it. All my friends encouraged me to start my own marketing company. My wife was fully supportive of this, even after we discussed the financial difficulties we would have for the first year or so, due to a limited budget. I made sure she knew that some months I might not receive a paycheck from the business. My salary is paid monthly. Her family, however, was not supportive. They accused me of neglecting my family, being lazy, not wanting to work, etc. They would constantly bring up the fact that I didn't have a job because I was always home, working remotely. She would defend me, but they would ignore it and continue to call me lazy and a deadbeat for putting my daughter in daycare while I worked from home. I was still driving a truck part-time to have a steady, reliable income, but it was only half of what I made on a good week. In the last year, however, I have grown my income from my business beyond what I was making in trucking, and I have very little overhead. Since we cut costs back when I first started, we realized a lot of the things we were paying for were unnecessary, or we found cheaper alternatives, so we never really added those expenses back. As a result, we now have significantly more money. I still drive a semi occasionally for a friend who owns his truck, mainly to keep my CDL active and stay knowledgeable in the industry as a fallback. Her family has taken note, and they are constantly asking to go out to eat with us, hang out with us, etc. Then get mad when I never pay for their meals, outings, vacations, etc. Aside from my own part of the tab, obviously. Looking back, I understand why they never had money. They were living well beyond their means. But if that makes them happy, then so be it. I let my wife do whatever she wants with her money, which sometimes includes buying things for her family, which I support her doing if that's how she wants to spend it. However, I make sure she knows I don't want a dime of my money going to her family, since they were very unsupportive of what led to our financial success, and even went so far as to talk down about me doing what ultimately made us successful. You are not obligated to play nice just because they want your money. I would, however, play nice if I wanted my partner to be happy. You can be polite without giving them anything, especially if they haven't apologized. I'm going with not the a-hole. My wife is definitely happy. She's content with our arrangement and has never complained about it. But recently, her family has been putting pressure on her to make me loosen up and be part of the family more. Then this is a her problem, not a you problem. Tell her you will support her however you can. If she wants, you can talk to them directly and explain to their faces, kindly and respectfully, why you aren't giving them money. That may harm your relationship with them, but it will reduce the pressure to get you to loosen up. And if she says yes, be kind and respectful. Just point out that they've yet to say a single nice thing about you or your career. When you drove a truck, you were just a truck driver. When you started your own company, you were a lazy deadbeat who didn't have a job. As far as you can tell, they saw no good qualities in you. Only now that you make money do they suddenly want you around? Sorry, but if you're going to spend money entertaining people, it will be on those who believed in you from the start and showed encouragement rather than constant negativity, or on people who appreciate you for who you are as a person, which hasn't changed no matter what your occupation is. You respect them as your wife's parents, but after the way they've treated you, and made no effort to change that or correct it, they should expect to be treated accordingly. I'm curious as to what your wife says when you say you don't want a dime going to her family. That will tell you everything you need to know. Also, you are not the a-hole. She's fine with it. Occasionally, if I know there is something she really wants to get for her family, I'll compromise and pick up a bill or two on her side that she normally pays, so she has some extra money to spend on them. Not the a-hole, but don't take it out on any kids. I had an uncle who was in a similar situation to you and wouldn't pay for anything for anyone who put him down, and that trickled down to their kids. For example, he'd offer to take all the teens out for ice cream but wouldn't pay for theirs. It put a damper on his daughter's relationship with her cousins and his relationship with his nieces and nephews. I definitely don't. The kids and teens I take out all the time for events, pay for their sports gear, etc. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my friends use my backyard for their wedding because they do not want me to bring a +1? Here is the situation. Last summer, I bought my grandparents' house. This house was the hangout spot for my friends and me throughout our childhood. This includes my friend Dave. The house has a sizable amount of land, which includes a lake and a gazebo. I was supposed to buy the house with my now ex-girlfriend, Leslie. But while going through the process of getting approved to buy, I found out that she had massive amounts of credit card and personal debt that she hid from me throughout our 4 years together. As a result, I decided to break up with her. That was about 6 months ago. I met Leslie because Dave's long-term girlfriend, Kim, is Leslie's cousin. Dave and Kim are engaged and set to get married in April. When I was buying the house, they asked if they could have the ceremony at the gazebo, which I agreed to. In December, I started dating again. Leslie has not taken this well at all. She thinks we are going to get back together and has tried multiple times to make that happen. I have told her in no uncertain terms that isn't happening. Dave and Kim have asked me not to bring a +1 to the wedding for Leslie's sake. I have told them that this request is ridiculous. This wedding is happening at my house, using my land, and I am not allowed to bring a date because of a crazy ex? If that is the case, then they need to find a new venue for the wedding. They're mad about this, given the short time frame before the wedding is supposed to happen. So we are at an impasse. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I have seen a few things brought up multiple times in the comments, so I will quickly address them here. 1. I am fully aware of the liability issues, which is why I purchased, and they reimbursed me for a special event insurance policy that will provide 100% coverage for any damages, claims, injuries, etc. to any of the property or persons up to $2 million. It was one of the first things we did after I agreed to have the event at my house. 2. The wedding will have a maximum of 75 guests. If everyone comes, 5 catering staff, and 5 security staff. The house has hosted events twice the size, and logistically it has been fine. On the property, there are 2 cottages, one with 1 bathroom and the other with 2 bathrooms. The only portion of my house that will not be locked during the wedding is the finished basement, which has 2 bathrooms. They want to tell you who you can have at your own home. and think it is fine. They're nuts. If they want to dictate guest rules, they should pay for the venue. He is being generous, and they're being entitled. Yeah, he is offering them a free wedding venue, and they're trying to control his personal life in return? That's not how favors work. Pull an Uno reverse. Tell them Leslie isn't allowed on your property, and watch their heads explode. The petty part of me did absolutely consider saying, well, Leslie cannot come to my house or on my land, so it shouldn't be a problem. This is the way. Agree not to bring a date. It's a small concession that actually protects your best interests. Whoever you brought would have the worst time navigating this ex-girlfriend drama. Instead, tell them that you are not comfortable having Leslie on your property and thank them for bringing this to your attention before the wedding. You had thought you could peacefully coexist with a wedding, but if bringing a date would cause problems, then they've opened your eyes to that not being the case. It's just better for everyone's mental health if she sits this one out. Feed them some BS about not wanting ex-girlfriend drama to take the spotlight away from them on their special day. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother's fiancé the real reason he won't let her invite her family to their wedding? My 29 male brother, 32 male, is engaged to his fiancée, 30 female, and their wedding is in a few months. Everything was going fine until she mentioned wanting to invite her side of the family. My brother immediately shut it down, saying it would ruin the wedding. She was devastated. For context, her family is lower income, and she's the only one in her family who went to college and built a successful career. Our family is pretty well off, and my brother has always been obsessed with keeping up appearances. I thought he was just being shallow, but then I found out the real reason. A few weeks ago, at a family gathering, I overheard my brother talking to our parents. He admitted he doesn't want her family at the wedding because they're embarrassing and look like they came from a trailer park. He even joked that her dad looks like he crawled out of a Walmart clearance bin. I was disgusted. His fiancée later asked me if I knew why he was so against inviting her family. I tried to dodge the question, but she was genuinely heartbroken and kept pressing me. I finally told her the truth. She went silent, thanked me, and left. Now everything has exploded. She confronted him, called him classist, and is considering calling off the wedding. My brother is furious and says I ruined his life by meddling. Our parents are on his side, saying I should have kept my mouth shut. I feel like she had a right to know, but now I'm wondering, am I the a-hole for telling her? Nah, you did the right thing. She deserved to know before marrying someone who looks down on her family. Her brother wasn't just being shallow, he was straight up cruel, and that's a massive red flag. If he's ashamed of them now, imagine how he'd treat them, and her, in the long run. He ruined his own life by saying those things. You just gave her the truth. Honestly, the second he told her he didn't want her side, but wanted his side, she should have bailed. Not the a-hole. Your brother is, though. The things he said about his fiancé's family are beyond disrespectful. It's not just about the wedding, it's about his character. He's showing how little he values her and her family. She deserves someone who sees her for who she is and supports her, not someone who is embarrassed by her background. Honestly, you did a right thing telling her. She had every right to know what kind of person she's marrying before it's too late. This is such a big character flaw on the brother's part. Respect for her and her background should be the bare minimum in a relationship. Next story. Am I the a-hole? I got a warning at work because I tried to catch the person who kept stealing my lunch, and it turned out to be my manager. She got a reaction and had to go to the hospital. I work at a family-owned company and I'm also pregnant. I've been having issues with someone stealing my lunch. In the beginning, it wasn't as often. I just chalked it up to being an honest mistake. Someone could have confused my lunch with theirs. But nope, it just kept happening more and more. I started putting my name on it, writing passive-aggressive notes, but that didn't help. I would still find my lunchbox empty. Sometimes they would just take a few bites and leave the rest. Even my half-drunk drinks were finished off. They were relentless, and it would happen a couple of times a week. I was at my wit's end because 1. I'm extra hungry due to pregnancy. 2. I am on a really tight budget, so I can't afford to replace the food, meaning I would have to work on an empty stomach for my whole shift. This completely enraged me. I even cried a couple of times in the bathroom because of this. It didn't just happen to me, but it felt like I was being targeted a lot for some reason. I made a decoy lunch, loading it with cayenne pepper because that was the worst thing I had in my cabinet, and I didn't want to hurt them. I don't like spicy food, so I never really use it. I took the food to work the following day and put it in the fridge, but it was still there at the end of my shift, so I took it home and brought it back the next day. Sure enough, it was stolen. About an hour later, there was a commotion. The manager was sick and stuck in the toilet for a while. Her throat swelled up, and she even had to go to the hospital. Turned out she had an allergic reaction. When she came back, she blamed me because she obviously knew exactly whose food she ate. I told her it was her own fault for stealing other people's food. Even after telling my side of the story to her boss, I got a verbal warning, and apparently I got off lightly. Nothing happened to the manager. I don't understand how I'm the bad guy for messing with my own food, but a literal thief gets away with stealing. Not the a-hole. Your only mistake was being honest about your motives. Next time, you gotta pretend you wanted spicy food and didn't know anybody allergic would try to share it. Save your honesty for home. That's the frustrating part. It feels like the system rewards thieves while punishing the victim. If the manager had just respected boundaries, this wouldn't have happened. Fuming over this whole situation, not the a-hole. You know, ever since I became pregnant, I have been having these super hard cravings for cayenne pepper. When I was pregnant with my oldest, I drank homemade spicy Bloody Mary mix every day and ate whole pickled jalapenos straight from the Costco-sized jar. It's really not that wild, lol. My mom said the dog food bag smelled appetizing a few times. My dad drew the line there. He locked it up and fed the dog himself. Poor Sarah. It was only for 5 months though. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my dad's widow/affair partner any of his estate and evicting her and my half-siblings from my childhood home? 5 years ago, my 25 female parents were still together when my father was caught having an affair with Jenna. Jenna confronted my mother and let her know that she was pregnant. My mother was devastated and chose to end herself. I was heartbroken, and I believe that in some way, my father was too. While I mostly blame him, the words Jenna said to my mother were cruel, and in my opinion, the main cause of her death. My father wanted to leave Jenna, but because she was pregnant, he married her instead. In my culture, women who are unmarried with children face significant stigma. They went on to have a second child together. I hadn't spoken to my father in the last 5 years, despite his many attempts. A large part of me has hated them both too much to reconcile. My father recently died in a car accident on his way home from work. I found out that he had never updated his will or estate. Everything was left to me, including his life insurance. Jenna tried to fight me in court, but my lawyer pointed out that she had an affair with my father while he was married. The judge ruled in my favor and shamed Jenna. Adultery is not taken kindly here, which is why the judge awarded her nothing. I had Jenna and her 2 children evicted from my childhood home. Jenna and her family have been furious with me. My father was a very wealthy man, and Jenna worked as a receptionist when they met. She now has no money to her name and lives with her mother. She believes I wronged her and my half-siblings. However, I do not consider them my family, and I resent them because they will always be her children. Am I the a-hole? Everyone I know is so divided. Consequences. Always so smug about it when they're up high, but somehow everybody owes them when they're low. The worst type of person. Not the a-hole OP. Consequences are right. Not the a-hole. Karma took a few years to show up, but boy did she come in with a vengeance. Jenna should have made sure he updated his will. Makes one wonder if he deliberately did not change it. Wondering that myself. I also wonder if the half-siblings were ever tested for their paternity. Almost sounds like some baby trapping went on, and OP mentioned the dad had regrets. There could be good reason for the dad not changing his will along with doing right by OP.